Once again, very good morning to everybody. We would like to begin our next session, Regulatory Roadmap to Promote Competitiveness and Investments. May I welcome our session chair, Dr. Mahesh Palgar, CEO of Syngene International Limited, Dr. S. Iswara Reddy, Joint Drugs Controller, Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, Dr. Nitin Kumar Jain, Scientist, Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Ravi Penmitra, Founding Family, former CEO and MD, Client Pharma Limited, Mr. Vikram Shrotia, Managing Director and Corporate Vice President, Novo Nordisk India Private Limited, Mr. Mahesh Doshi, Partner and Managing Director, Dymac Pharma and President IDMA, Mr. B.R. Sikri, Chairman, Hope and Co-Chairman CII Northern Region Committee of Life Science and Biotech, Mr. V.V. Krishna Reddy, Managing Director, Sri Krishna Pharmaceuticals and President BDMA. May I request Dr. Palgar to kindly preside over the session, please. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. Sorry, I had to reconnect, but thanks for doing the introductions. I think we have a very esteemed panel that's joining us for this discussion on a very important platform and opportunity that CII has provided. Before I start off, I did want to acknowledge that CII has been a tremendous partner with all of the industry folks for many of the challenges that we've had to deal with during the lockdown and during the past several months that we've been through this pandemic situation in. So special thanks to all of you guys for the tremendous amount of work that you do, coordinating many things for us and keeping the clock running, if you will. In this particular session, we're going to talk about policy and regulatory roadmap for promoting competitiveness and self-reliance. We're going to look at fiscal support, policy support, regulatory agility, and some of the elements that are there as we talk about the transition that India needs to make towards being Atmanirbhar, towards moving to an innovation-based economy as opposed to a Me Too economy. So I have the pleasure of having Dr. Iswara Reddy with us. As I was just introduced, he is the Joint Drug Controller of India with CDSCO. One of the things I did want to mention about him is that he has been the youngest drugs controller general who has worked in all positions of hierarchies, making up the ranks, starting as a drugs inspector and then being the DCGI and joint DCGI. For the session, what I'm going to propose we do is we have some opening comments from both our government representatives, Dr. Iswara Reddy and then Dr. Nitin Jain, and then we will move into the discussion with our panelists who are there with specific questions to address the topics Atmanirbharta and the regulatory roadmap that we need to have for a competitive and investment-based approach. That said, a few words from me on setting the tone and setting the background for this particular conversation. It was almost 40 years back. If you think about it, India at the time was a net importer of API and formulations, and that was more because of the way we were structured with the presence of the multinational companies who were dominating a lot of the work that was going on and the trade, the approaches that were there on how money was being made in India and how it was being and how profits were being able to be kept outside India. I think over the last few years, if we think about it, India is now, and we use this phrase very often, is the pharmacy of the world. And of course, we say that because of the fact that we are today supplying to 206 countries. We are third in volume, 10th in value. I've made the statement before, I believe we can actually become third in value as well. And there are some key things that need to happen. The journey for that has already begun. It will need to be accelerated, and that's what we're going to talk about in this particular session. The API industry, if we talk about that for a few minutes, is about 10 billion, of which we know 4 billion are exports, 4 billion APIs. Is there somebody who's not on mute? If you can be on mute, thank you. There's a number of reasons for why we have material coming from China. 70% of our imports come from China. The good news on that is and there, as well as the bad news. A lot of that material is used for the India manufacture, but not for the exports, which does increase our level of dependence that we have on the Chinese supplies. When we think about the overall Indian pharma industry, which is valued at about $42 billion, it's roughly 21 billion for domestic and 21 billion for exports. So this is a huge market, a huge opportunity, and the government has been doing a number of things of late, which is what I hope that we can have the opportunity to hear debate about as to what more needs to happen in that background. Two other things I want to touch on, which we may not have the opportunity to cover in this particular session because we'll keep it much more focused to the things that are in motion, but what needs to be also considered and be brought into motion now so that we don't have to play catch up later on is our journey in biosimilars, is our journey in newer therapies such as gene and cell therapies, is our incorporation of technology into the pharma sector, whether it's through the use of IoT, AI, ML, newer ways of bringing in vectors, clones, newer ways of partnering on these technological aspects. Those are things that we will need to start to work on now, so that we are not playing a catch-up game as we are doing on some of the other areas that I just talked about. And before we get in, just to highlight the significance of this particular area, I want to mention something that was commented yesterday by our Joint Secretary, Department of Pharmaceuticals, Mr. Rinva. He said, through bulk drug parks, the states are coming out with their incentive policies to make capital expenditure and operational expenditure lower. Fantastic. We should not restrict making in India, but go for make in India for the world, and we will achieve that only when we are able to compete with China. With that note, I'll open it up and in the order of, we'll hear from Dr. Ishwar Reddy on his opening remarks, and then from Dr. Jain, and then we'll open it up for conversation with the panelists and their inputs on this very, very important topic. Over to you, Dr. Ishwar.
Thank you, Dr. Mahesh. And first of all, let me congratulate the CII Life Science Conclave organized by CII in consultation with the Department of Biotechnology, Department of Pharmaceuticals, and Government of Madhya Pradesh. So, Dr. Mahesh, I have few slides. Can I share that?
Absolutely. Nirja, can we? Yeah, can you?
Yes, please give us a moment, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So, are you able to see the slides?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we can. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So just I have few slides about the topic given to me, a regulatory roadmap to promote the competitiveness and investment. As all of you know, the ideal drug regulatory system in any country, it should have main three pillars. One is the accountability to the public, and one is predictability in the approval process, and also transparency in the approval process. I think the CDSCO from time to time has taken various measures to achieve these three pillars. So just briefly, I will give some details about what steps CDSU has taken last few years to bring the predictability, transparency in the drug regulatory system in India. Before that, we would like to also share with you what are the actual main challenges at present we are facing with respect to the regulations and other things. One of the major challenge at present is because our Drugs and Cosmetic Act is a pre-British era act. It is 1940 Act, and there is a need for revision in the legislation, mainly to address all emerging areas. I think, as all of you know, because of the development in the science and technology, developments in IT and other sector, the new therapies like gene therapy or like proteomics or genomics or stem cell related are the new diagnostic testings. This is another one of the major developments in the science and technological area. Earlier, the diagnosis is done only after once the patient has some symptoms. Now the time has come, even healthy people, they the diagnosis. Future they may not able to get any they can diagnosis what type of symptoms you may come across in future, and that is one of the great challenge. Second is that absence of regulatory impact analysis. This is the one of the, what we feel, I feel personally is we make so many regulations from time to time, we will come with the different guidelines, but what is the impact of that regulation on industry, on the stakeholders, on the public, and how it is impact economically, how it impact the socially, how it impact on the quality of the product. I think there should be a mechanism in Indian regulatory system before making any regulation, any guidelines, or any clarifications. I think first we need to see how it will impact our system. There should be a mechanism of regulatory impact analysis. And as all of you know, we have a lot of many regulations, but I think we are not good in the guidance documents. So until unless we have a clearly defined guidance documents on each and every parameter to be complied as per the regulatory requirement, and I quite frequently remember, Mr. Sikri sir, every time he said that to understand the Indian drug regulation, we need another legal expert or another person to interpret that. I think these type of problems can be overcome if we have a very clearly defined guidance documents. And another important thing is there is a lack of research on regulatory science. Unfortunately, most of our decisions are based upon the international regulatory decisions. For example, whether it is a ranitidine issue of impurity or whether it is a recently COVID vaccine, if internationally one regulatory authority takes some action, then immediately we will do the same action here. If they will withdraw something, we will also withdraw something. That means we don't have our own stand. We don't have our own, say in any particular issue. I think to address this type of thing in India, I feel personally we need to have our own research on regulatory science, mainly the Center of Excellence in the regulatory science. And also, I feel personally lack of system to update the skill and knowledge of the regulators, because of one side industry technology is growing so fast. I think in the regulators skill and knowledge also need to be updated. And also there is a need for clear-cut policy and pediatric drugs for the development purpose. Even FDCs, what FDC to be approved, what not to be approved, thereby industry is clear about it before making the application. Similarly, there need to be have a orphan drug policy and even clinical trial policies. And another great challenge is adoption of the global standards. We have a mix of various industry, and we had to work together to achieve global standards with respect to ICH or PIC. And also there is a need for suitable mechanism to ensure the confidentiality of the submissions. This is the one of the concern industry is expressing from time to time. So various measures taken by CDSU with respect to achieving the accountability, transparency, and predictability. In 2019, we brought the new regulations for the new drugs and clinical trials. As most of you are aware, we have a special provisions for the expedite review and accelerated review process. Similarly, now in the COVID situation, if you see the approval time, the review timelines have drastically come down. In fact, we should be thankful to the Drug Control General of India for his commitment in reducing the timelines and utilizing this opportunity given in the rules for the expedited review of either it is COVID vaccine related products or COVID drugs or otherwise COVID diagnostic kits. And first time in the regulation, we brought the timelines for the disposal of various applications. And we also included for concept of deemed approval. If the applicant has not received any communication within 30 working days in case of a drug innovated in India, then that protocol is deemed considered as approved. And there are also similar such provisions like post-trial access to the new drugs and investigational new drugs, pre and post-submission meeting provision we have included. Another very important, earlier even for the conduct of clinical trial, they required a permission from the DCGI. Now there is no permission is required for conduct of clinical trials for the drugs which are already permitted in India. And there are also specific provisions we have included for orphan drugs. We have defined what is orphan drug, and there is no fee for the orphan drug. There is a clinical trial waiver. And we also included the concept of registration of BAB centers. And As earlier speaker said rightly, the CDSU has also taken various steps on biosimilars, and we brought the guidelines on the biosimilars developed jointly by the DBT and CDSU. We have also provided the definition of biologicals, and we have identified what are the critical and key quality and attributes for the establishing the similarity. And we also specify the lower limits for the minimum sample size of 100 for the clinical evaluation. And we also specified clearly the making phase 4 safety evaluation compulsory, and also recognizing the innovator product as a reference biological. And first time in the guidelines, we also include the concept of a parallel submission of application to CDSCO and RCGM. And the CDSU has also taken some measures to ensure the quality of the product. I think, as all of you know, requirement of BABE mandatory provision has been made as per the biopharmaceutical classification system, and the requirement of stability studies data, as well as the excipient safety compatibility studies. And there was a provision for the joint inspection for issuance of manufacturing license. To achieve the transparency in our system, the CDSU has launched Sugam portal in the 2016. Now, most of the CDSU applications have received in the form of online applications, submission, processing, approvals, all are through online. And we have a separate portal for Sugam Labs where we have digitizing the various functions of the laboratories to ensure the timely testing of drugs and also maintain the integrity and traceability of samples. And we also now made a module for creation of a database for all the manufacturing facilities in the country and also products approved in the market. And CDSU, we have developed new website which is user friendly and also facility for search. And CDSU, we are in the process of achieving the global standards. As you know, the biological division of CDSU has been pre-qualified by WHO. This is we got almost maturity level 4. And India is we have observer status in the ICH, and CDSU is actively participating in the international fora. We already have a MOU with USFDA, MHRA, PMDA on various collaboration issues, and now there is a draft revised GMP standard in the process of approval, which is on par with the WHO standard. And India, we are going to hosting the 19 ICDRA meeting where all international regulatory authorities are members. They are going to join this meeting. And various steps also taken for ease of doing business, increasing the validity of WHO GMP certificates and COPP, and waiver of NOC for the export purpose, and also delegation of powers of the CDSCO to the state for issue of NOC with respect to the unapproved drug for export purpose. And CDSU is also started public relation office to address the grievance of the stakeholders and also support the innovators regarding the regulatory requirements for commercialization of their products. And CDSU is also in the process of revamping the regulatory mechanism in India. Already the committee under the chairmanship of Secretary, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare is going to submit the final report. Various recommendations have been made in that, and mainly restructuring of permissions and mechanism in drug discovery. In fact, in this, we are going to have a separate subcommittee of RCGM and GES in the CDSCO, and there will be only one application, and there will be only one infrastructure for submission of the applications for this. And we are also identifying the government infrastructure where available in the national premier institutes that can be shared with the private organizations for the drug development. And we are also working on the promotion of drug discovery and innovation. A lot of streamlining activities are going to be happening, especially with respect to the import license for test and analysis, even Form 29 licenses, even parallel submission of various applications. And we also going to develop the policy on FDC, vaccines, orphan drugs, pediatric drugs, and also we are going to have a separate policy on international collaboration, for which country, what type of collaboration CDSCO should establish. And we also try to achieve compliance to the global standards, and we are working for taking steps towards the membership in the PICS and other international forums like ICH. And we are also streamlining regulatory process at state levels. There is no uniformity in the implementation of the drugs and cosmetic provisions of Drugs and Cosmetic Act and rules. and we are in the process of paperless office. In I think whatever at present we are still operating around 15-20% hard copy applications. In the coming future, the CDSU is going to be a completely a paperless office. We are also in the process of establishing the Center of Regulatory Excellence, and we are in shortly we will establish Center for Excellence. And as I discussed in the challenge, we are also working on a guidance document on regulatory impact analysis. So I think, as earlier speaker said directly, Government of India has taken various measures to promote the innovation. Till now, as an Indian Drug Regulatory Authority, we were in an impression that we are responsible only for the quality of the product. Anything relating to the drug discovery or innovation, which is not under the regulation. So till now, we are the developments and the government coming towards the innovation and drug regulation moving for slowly moving in culture. Also changed. You must have also a lot of change the attitude, behavior of the drug regulators. Earlier, there was a complete command and control system of regulatory mechanism. Now it is moving towards the people-centered system. Before making any changes in the system, regulation and participation of all stakeholders and industry and NGOs before finalizing the any regulation or a document. And also we are moving towards the complex regulations to the simple regulations which can able to understand by everyone. And another very important thing, even if you see the autocratic type of leadership to now the current this is completely a demo type of leadership. You must have seen leadership of either it is our DCGI or whether it was a Secretary Department of Pharmaceuticals or Secretary Health or Secretary DPIIT or Secretary Commerce. If you see any leadership, there is a completely change in the leadership qualities. It is now completely a democratic and participative type of leadership exists in India, which is going to be a very conducive environment for the growth of pharmaceutical industry, especially the innovation. And the Indian Drug Regulatory Authority, what we have much recognized system, slowly we are now moving towards the stringent regulatory authority. I am sure in the next coming years, the products which are manufactured by any company, not only just approved by the well-established regulatory authorities, will be globally recognized, and because of our quality and because of our affordability of the drug. So thank you very much, Dr. Mahesh, for giving me this opportunity. Yes, to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Reddy. I think you have very eloquently captured what we are going through as we transition in India, making the move from imitation to innovation, and what are some of the key challenges, plus some of the things that are already done towards this particular transition. I personally do believe that this is a very important area that we need to address, because on one hand, while we've seen with the API PLI scheme, for example, there are a number of things that the government can take as steps towards bringing in investments towards making the atmosphere more conducive. There is also the regulatory changes that need to keep up, and the fact that we need an agile, transparent regulatory system is, of course, going to be very much a co-partner in this journey for us. And I think you eloquently highlighted some of those challenges and some of those areas as well. So we'll look forward to hearing from others on those bits too. I'll move to Dr. Nitin Jain. Dr. Jain is with the Department of Biotechnology, and is going to actually speak to us on the components that the Department of Biotechnology is contributing towards with his current responsibilities. He is responsible for planning, coordination, budget-related activities, and he's also the member secretary of RCGM. Over to you, Dr. Jain. If we can hear your opening comments, that would be great as we then move to the panel.
Thank you, Dr. Mahesh and Dr. Reddy for opening remarks as well. So very good morning to all of you, and it's my pleasure and privilege to be part of CII Life Science Conclave 2020, energizing Make in India through life science sectors. So just actually, I don't have the formal presentation, but would like to share with you about the landscape of biotechnology and recent developments in the biosafety regulations. So the complete landscape of biotechnology in India comprises of 2,700 plus startups, number of US FDA approved plants after highest number of US FDA approved plant after USA, the largest vaccine manufacturing facility, 600 plus biotech industry, 50 plus bioincubators, and we have the industry associations like CII, then ABLE, and the government departments which are facilitating the research, development, translation, and commercialization of biotech processes and products as well. So this strong foundation is catalyzing the growth of the biotechnology sector with a compound annual growth rate of 22%. And we expect that we can have a 150 billion USD biotech sector by 2025. And this was stated by our secretary as well in the morning session. So this sector is very promising. And regarding this biosafety and biosecurity, which are the important and integral part for undertaking the research and development activities in the biotechnology, because of the concerns related with the biosecurity and biosafety, these activities are regulated under the Environment Protection Act 1986, Weapon for Mass Destruction Act 2005, and also it is regulated under the foreign trade policy, because export of some biological agent is restricted under the foreign trade policy, which is called SCOMET items. So these are regulated under the UNSC 1540. So basic provision of Weapon for Mass Destruction Act and foreign trade policy are to address the dual use concern of the biotechnology. However, the provisions of Rules 1989 of Environment Protection Act are to ensure the human safety and environment safety while undertaking the research and development activities involving genetically engineered organisms or hazardous microorganisms. So in accordance with the rules 1989, a committee which is called a Review Committee on Genetic Manipulation functions in Department of Biotechnology and regulate biotechnology research and development activities. RCGM is interdisciplinary and interministerial committee. We have representatives from ICR, we have representatives from CDSCO and Ministry of Environment and Forest, Ministry of Health, and of course we also have representatives from MHA as well. So during last 1 year, RCGM and DVT have taken several reforms to streamline the biosafety regulations to facilitate research and development activities in biotechnology. And I would like to share the steps we have taken to streamline the regulations. So first, we launched the Indian Biosafety Knowledge Portal in May 2019. So as Reddy sir was telling regarding the accountability, predictability, and transparency. So this portal is one-stop solution for all. So applicant can see the status of the application, and no human interference is there, and permissions are or authorizations are available on the portal itself. Then in January 2020, DBT RCGM issued the revised simplified procedure guidelines for import, export, transfer of biological material for research and development purpose. So under this, most of the powers or authorities have been delegated to institutional biosafety committees, which functions at the site of host institution. So they can accord the permission for the import exports of vector clones, which can be handled up to BSL-1 and BSL-2 level of containment. Then with the COVID in March 2020, we came out with the rapid regulatory response framework for COVID-19, where we fixed the timelines for examination of the applications and according the approvals as well. So then we also came with the rapid response regulatory framework for COVID-19 vaccine development and checklist. So all this information is available on Indian Biosafety Knowledge Portal. Then recently in September, last month, in the beginning of September, 2nd September, we issued the Handbook of Institutional Biosafety Committee, third revised edition. So earlier this handbook was published in 2011, and after a gap of a long time, the third edition was published in September 2020, because this new handbook comprises of the activity of the Indian Knowledge Biosafety Portal, means how to constitute IBSC at the portal, how to deal applications in the portal. So all descriptions are there in the handbook. Then we have increased the frequency of holding the review committee of genetic manipulations meetings. So earlier, during last year, we were holding the meetings of our CGM at the interval of 45 days. Then slowly we came to 1 month, and now from the September 2020, we are holding the meetings of review committee of genetic manipulation every fortnightly. So with tweaking the processes, we could be able to reduce the timelines for the approval. Then we also started 24th September. We started undertaking the interactive sessions with our IBSC member secretaries. So we have about 350 IBSCs registered on IBKP portal. On 24th September meeting, we had an interactive session with 50 IBSCs. So 50 member secretaries of the IBSC joined with us. We discussed about the IBKP and how can we remove the redundancy present in the system. So as an organization, DBT and the review committee of genetic manipulation is very open to take the views and comments of the stakeholder, so that we can be able to reduce the redundancy. And we experience that the small tweaking in the processes can reduce timelines drastically. Then good regulation evolves with the development of science and technology. And in order to keep pace with the developments in the biotechnology, we are working on the development of several guidelines, documents, and some important guidelines are targeted for next 1 year are guidelines on notified field trial sites that we have prepared. It is under consideration with the GAC for final approval. Then we are also working on the certification guidelines for BSL-3 containment facilities. So this is at the verge of approval. I expect that we will have this guideline by next month. Then we are also working on the updation of the risk group of microorganisms, and we also prepared one guidelines on the draft guidelines on the safety assessment of genome edited plants. So this is also is being considered by GAC for approval. So with that, this is all about the role and responsibilities of our CGM and DBT. We have a very eminent panelist, and if some suggestions or opinion emerges during the panel discussion, we would be very happy to take it forward with our CGM and DBT. So with that, thank you very much, CII. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jain. Thank you very much. Really helpful to hear all of the work that is going on with regards to the improvements that are required. I think one of the things I need to specifically call out is Dr. Ishwar Reddy mentioned, in a way, there is a need for guidelines so that our interpretation and our implementation of all of the regulatory structure is much more efficient. And it's good to hear that some of those things are already being worked on. As you just mentioned, including for containment facilities. As we talk about more and more bio-related products, the containment facility guidelines are going to be even more and more important. Let me now move to the panelists that Neerja has already introduced, but I'll just mention one more word about the first panelist that I want to pose a question to, which is Mr. Sikri. Of course, Mr. Sikri does not need any introduction. He's been associated with the pharma sector for more than 42 years. Very rich experience in myriad of areas in this particular sector. He's also the the vice president of BDMA and many other positions that I don't even want to necessarily try and articulate all of them. But a very strong contributor to inputs on what we need to do in terms of implementing some of the changes that we need to go towards as we make the Atmanirbharta, the competitiveness, the landscape of India different in the coming years. That said, let me start with a question for you, Dr. Sikri, which is, what are some of the steps that are to be taken to make this API PLI scheme? So we've heard about the API PLI scheme. It is going to be a game changer for India in terms of our dependency on APIs and help realize the vision of Atmanirbhar India. What are some of the steps that need to be taken to make this a reality? So we've seen this. Where do we go from here?
Thank you, Mahesh. I'm also grateful to Dr. Ishwar Reddy. Today, his presentation was really, we came to know that he's talking about a deemed approval system. So I must compliment. Coming to my every good thing has a ridiculous beginning. When you start something new, there is a problem. Atma Manthan and Atma Chintan means you have to do the analysis and do the analytical analysis. While I'm appreciating I'm going to give only 3-4 points because time constraint is on.
Mr. Sikri, there is a bandwidth issue. We cannot hear you. Please switch off your video. Sir, there is a bandwidth issue at your end. Please switch off your video, Mr. Sikri.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So what I want to request is there are certain small anomalies, and I hope Dr. Ishwar Reddy is listening my version. Number one, first anomaly in the scheme is with regard to the protection of investment by the entrepreneur. See, repeatedly we have been telling 30 years back, Dr. Garu, 30 years back this scheme was announced for penicillin G, and many people burned their finger. Government didn't come to our rescue, and with the result 10 licenses were cancelled and the investment just waste. It is not an individual investment, it is a nation in money also. So we have not been able to get any written assurance from the government, wherever every meeting we have been given the assurance just government is either going to give you the anti-dumping or going to give you some additional incentive, or they will increase the import duty. Import duty you can't increase because of the limitation of WTO. That is one. Second reason which I have been repeatedly requesting, when the existing manufacturers are able to produce the product with small incentive if you give without affecting the current production, when they are able to give you the product tomorrow, why you want to wait for 2 years? So our industry is ready. IDMA and BDMA, Dr. Mahesh Doshi and Mr. Krishna Reddy, both of them luckily here. We have contacted our members, and 90% of your chemical synthesis based product we can produce tomorrow. So why can't you give that incentive tomorrow till the new policy comes? After 2 years, you can withdraw. So when we are able to solve the problem as an industry, as a national citizen of this country, why government is hesitating? And this we are talking since last 2 months. The third and foremost issue which I have been making a request to the government also, the investor to inform the government what will be the cost of the production today. See, it is a ridiculous question. How can you decide what will be the raw material cost after 2 years? What will be the input cost? What will be the power tariff? What will be the manpower cost? There are so many factors. Okay, I will give. Tomorrow, see, this is what is called red tapeism and the bureaucratic hurdles. tomorrow, if my cost of production goes up, you will give me the incentive based on my today's declaration. But if it goes down, what will happen? You will give me the incentive based on the reduced price. So there is a gap between the understanding each other. My humble submission, Dr. Ishwar Reddy, most dynamic technocrat, most intelligent regulator, he understands the pulse of the game, he understands the pain of the industry also. But my only, you have to become advocate also, Dr. Saab. If this message goes to the top bosses, tomorrow itself the policy, when a man can go to the cabinet and get the approval of this policy, PLI scheme in 40 days. So this will take only 4 days. And one more last issue which I wanted to bring it to the kind notice, with regard to the ease of doing business. State government, you are going to have a deliberation. See, today a particular state has got a ease of doing business 3 or 4. But what is the guarantee that after my investment is over, we will get same treatment? And one more last issue I would like to raise. See, when this new policy was announced about 17, 18 years back, excise-free zone, Himachal, Uttaranchal, Sikkim, and Jammu and Kashmir. At that time, we were told that this incentive will be given, that will be the power rate, that will, after we started the investment, the power rate was suddenly increased. We want a written guarantee from the state government. Central government has to take up this matter with the state government. Whatever they are committing today, at least for 10 years, that has to continue, because we have burnt our fingers, we have suffered also. So although there are many issues in my mind, but I'm seeing the watch also, I'm seeing so many dynamic faces also who are waiting. So these are few suggestions which I wanted to give to the government through Dr. Ishwar Reddy, who has been hearing this version in the past also. But today also I thought, maybe if you keep on demanding, one day government will also realize, yes, it is in the interest of the nation. Investors are ready, entrepreneur is ready, technology is in our pocket, money is not the criteria. Even some of the people may not even go for a loan. What is needed is इच्छा शक्ति की थोड़ी सी सरकार के साथ मिलने की कमी है. अगर वो इच्छा शक्ति भी पूरी हो जाए, I can give you the assurance, very people are really taking a lot of interest in this scheme, and wonders are, the day is going to come when we will show the wonders to the world, and within 3 to 4 years, India will become more than China what we have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sikri. In a few minutes, you brought up a number of things for us for us to actually communicate as opportunities that are there. But I think very eloquently put, this is where the dialogue has to happen. Because when we put something new out there, it has to go through refinement, and that happens to such open dialogue. And it's great to have Dr. Ishwar Reddy, Dr. Jain of the representing government here to hear some of these viewpoints. Dr. Ishwar Reddy, if you don't mind, what I will do is I'll continue with some more thoughts from the panelists, and then we can come back to you on some reflections. That said, I'll move to Dr. Doshi, and Dr. Doshi, there is more that as you as head of IDMA has been trying to make sure that we are able to prepare for policy and structural changes that are there. What are some of the things that you can reflect on that are ongoing? Plus, what are some of the things that you can add that the government can think through and industry can bring forward for this partnership?
Thank you, CII, for arranging such a nice conclave, and a greeting from us to you, Mahesh, as well as our friend, philosopher, and guide of the industry, Dr. Ishwar Reddy, Nitin Jain, my co-panelist Sikriji, Shiroya, and Dr. Garu, Reddy Garu, BDMA. We normally constantly, it is a continuous process with the government as well as with the regulator on this subject. But as after saying the presentation of a Dr. Ishwar Reddy Garu, so many things can be clear from that one. But at the outset, we must consider that our regulator need to oversee various sectors, the highly developed and a developing sector. Given this exceptional nature of the pharmaceutical market, it is important to understand the pharma sector from uniform policy angle. No company is big enough to provide the same medicine to all of India. And and more company make the same drug to cover the requirement of the people all over the India. The industry is extremely fragmented with SME sector approximately accounting 70% of the production by volume. Regulators are hard pressed to come up with the regulation and policy that will carry all the sector forward. The regulatory environment which has developed over a period of a time does not seem homogeneous across the sector. We have been hearing of a single window system many a time by the respective state government and their institution which are hardly in practice and hold back industry from a further exploring the investment opportunity in the R&D, clinical trial and expansion of the capacity. The life science sector are facing many challenges including environmental and regulatory synergizing, regulatory compliance of a stringent quality norms, etc., etc. Our regulator have a tendency to convert all SOP, guideline, etc. into rule. This must be avoided. We normally argue with the regulator that there should be more and more guideline rather than the rules. Industry must be the trusted to self-regulate and guided in case of an error and not penalized for a minor issue. Early phase of a development such as discovery and development, preclinical research, etc. need to be encouraged. Our regulators are moving towards a speeding up approval time as a witness during this COVID-19 pandemic with the approval being granted for some drug or new uses of a drug even within a day also. Drug discovery may occur from existing treatment that have unanticipated effect or repurposed drug prompting doctor to prescribe for off-label indication. So also in the case with a biosimilar, this can be encouraged with set SOP and a guideline. The policy and regulation need to be manufacturers friendly. All project and proposal need to be considered in a long term for the next 15 years as the pharma, biotech, vaccine sector have a long gestation period. Frequent changes in a policy would be a counterproductive and restrict long-term growth. Better understanding between center and a state is required for addressing the issue. Mainly the weighted tax deduction had come as a boon to conduct R&D in the pharmaceutical and other life science industry, which is being phased out by the government and is discouraging the industry to do innovation through R&D. Central regulatory system, membership with the ICH countries, PICs, convention observer status, MRIs with select region, guideline for conducting BE studies and clinical trial are some suggestions which could be looked at as an immediate strategy for a promotion of an Indian generic industry and export globally. Government has been coming up with a policy in a support of an industry such as the recent PLI. My friend Sikriji has elaborated very widely and he has reflected the view of an entire industry, not only the Sikriji's association, but entire industry is endorsing the view of the Sikriji. Government also notified the new drug and clinical trial rule last year. Recently, CDSCO released draft guideline for development of a vaccine. There is a now need for a major shift in strategy. The Indian government and our regulator have a bigger than ever role to play in a driving the next wave of a growth and work closely with the manufacturers as a stakeholder in the pharmaceutical, biosimilar and vaccine industry. And in concluding, I'm concluding it, but again, I'm telling that there should be a more guideline than the rules in any of the act. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Doshi. And I think those are very much the need of the hour comments with regards to recognizing how we bring more agility into the system, how we make sure that all of the components that need to be in harmony from an industry perspective as well as from a regulatory perspective are going to play together, supported by policy. I'll move to our next organization that is represented by Dr. Krishna Reddy, who is the president of BDMA and also managing director of Sri Krishna Pharmaceuticals. Dr. Reddy, Krishna Garu, on your thoughts on how we make sure that the other transition that we are referring to, which is moving towards an innovation-based mindset, and some of the things that can be done. I know we've heard a lot about the thoughts on what Dr. Reddy, Ishwar Reddy Garu has mentioned that is already being done. What would you like to add to that, and your thoughts on what will help?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Mahesh Balgat and Dr. Ishu Reddy for having me on this program. I wouldn't like to deliberate much, but already my colleagues from BDMA, Mr. Sikri, has already voiced his concern, and also Mr. Mr. Mahesh Doshi. The only thing that right now the PLI scheme is a very good scheme in the right direction in making India Atmanirbhar as far as APIs and the KSMs for the APIs are concerned. It's a very good scheme. We need to take this forward. And one of the reasons is that from here, we just have 1 year so that we could avail the benefits of the scheme, that the incentives start pouring in from 2021-22 onwards. Most of the time, what the hurdles that we face are that problems from the MOEF. Getting clearances from the MOEF is always easier said than done. I think it takes a lot of time, and many entrepreneurs lose their patience and enthusiasm in the process. I think we should speed this up, and we should take this as a national priority and see that the MOEF clearances are given at the earliest. This would encourage the entrepreneurs to set up facilities at the earliest and also avail those schemes. Also, in terms of innovation, we need to again get back the 150% or 200% standard deduction on R&D, which has helped the industry in a long way. Right now, it has been removed since last December, and we would definitely like the government to take a look at this scheme again and see that it is introduced at the earliest, so that the innovation is encouraged, and this is where the industry can take it forward. One more thing that is required is that once the entrepreneur is given a particular product, they have identified about KSMs and intermediates and fermentation products. Once a particular industry is given a particular product, it is also the scope in the government to see that the finances are available at the earliest, and all of them go side by side, the MOF clearance as well as the finances from the banks, because right now the banks are tightening their strings because of the COVID pandemic. I understand they have their own problems in terms of recoveries and NPS going on, but this should be considered in a separate section, and this should be given national importance. And whoever has applied for the PLI scheme should be seen that they should be given the finances from the banks at the earliest, and also MOF clearances, so that all these products are brought into production at the earliest, and we become Atmanirbhar as early as possible. That's my only request. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your comments. I think again very much capturing an additional dimension of what we need to consider, which is yes, we have we have the framework in place. Now how do we get to implementation? How do we actually bring the money where it is required? How do we make the guidelines and the policies actually implementable? So very good input. I will move to I don't know if Dr. Ravi is still with us, but if he's with us, I'd love to have Dr. Ravi say a few words about the challenges that we have been able to talk about in the frame of this particular implementation. And but let me first check and see if Dr. Ravi is around. I don't believe Dr. Ravi is around. We'll move to you, Mr. Vikrant. I think what we've heard so far is of course music to our ears, from recognizing some of the areas that are being tackled, also some of the areas that still need to be tackled, and an open dialogue on that. You come from a background of working with Novo Nordisk, which is of course present both in the international arena as well as in India. What are some of the regulatory components that you wish to see? And I'm sure you've seen a lot of them when Dr. Ishwar Reddy presented them. What more would you like to recognize as specifically important for us in this transition and in this journey for India? Mr. Vikrant, I think you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahesh, and thanks a lot, Dr. Ishwar Reddy. It was not a music, it was a fine orchestra actually, which I heard. And I'm an Indian, though I'm working for a multinational organization. And I think I firmly believe in this Atmanirbharta. And I actually personally believe that from the pharmacy of the world, India can definitely move to the quality pharmacy of the world. There are three important aspects when it comes to the investment as well as the guidelines or the direction for the innovation which is concerned and the supply of the quality medicine which is concerned. The transparency, consistency, and you can say globally aligned regulatory framework, which is very important. I should thank Dr. Ishwar Reddy during the time of this COVID, what has happened to remdesivir and COVID vaccines on the multiple track. I think that is phenomenal. The expert committee meeting, which has actually started happening online, and I can actually personally see the speed at which the approvals are coming is phenomenal. When you are talking about the global supply in terms of rare of the rarest diseases, doing away with phase 4 trial, I think something which is phenomenal because the patient group are very, very less. And we need to see that not necessarily the phase 4 trial could really be commissioned very, very easily. But I also liked, and I would like to say that yes, from the observation status of ICH or the PICS guideline, if India can become actually the member, that can really help in terms of taking forward India on the global map, which is extremely important in terms of having the regulatory. I think the overall from generics to innovation, regulator to facilitator, and from a complex to a very simple environment is something very important. The most second important point actually, which I would like to say, Mahesh, is that the entire investment ecosystem in terms of India, though Invest India has come, the state governments are coming. In fact, the entire acceleration comes to that particular direction will be extremely helpful. Like, for example, for a multinational organization which has to invest in India, of course, if it is a greenfield project, it's a direct FDI route which is there. But if it is brownfield, then you know that we have to go through the Foreign Direct Investment Board. And then there are a lot of limitations, good for some of the reasons, but probably too restrictive in terms of the investment. And the third important point is that when it comes to investment, and Atmanirbharta is also by the domestic industry route, but also by the investment from the multinational organization, they need to have certain element other than some kind of a SOPs or tax rebates. I think there has to be a small preferential or guarantee of access to the market, which is extremely important. If you look at Turkey, if you look at Russia, if you look at Saudi Arabia or Brazil, and take an example of an Indian company going to Malaysia and getting a commission when starting a industry out there or a company out there, that is something very, very important. And some of the, like the recent PPO or public procurement order which has come less than 200 crore, I am actually a very good advocate for that Atmanirbharta is required. But what about some of the rare disease, some of the oncology area, hemophilia, thalassemia, where probably we still need to have a road to go in terms of having a self-sustainability. So those kind of an access from the global market to India is also very important. But on the other side, I personally feel that we need to compete with India in terms of Atmanirbharta when it comes to API, when it comes to KSI. And personally, I like this, the investment angle of more than 6,000 crore, the FDI link. I think this is extremely important when it comes to having a self-sustainability. And as you say, Dr. Mahesh, moving from not only the 10th largest or the third largest in volume, but moving closer to in terms of even the value. So these are the three elements which I feel are important in terms of having the supply from the global world to India and also becoming India as a global supplier, not only in terms of pharmacy, but quality pharmacy.
Thank you very much, Vikrant. I think we're very well captured. I think some of these components are, of course, going to be really embedded in our ways of working, I believe, because that's where we've already started to move towards. Dr. Reddy, I want to come back to you and see, you've heard a lot of things that are, of course, going to fuel what you've been doing, but also then bring in some more opportunities for rather rapid implementation of the API PLI scheme and the move towards Atmanirbharta. I think one of the things that I want to specifically call out is, the speed of our responses, as was pointed out on many occasions in this hour, has dramatically improved, and we'll need to continue to do that, and maintain that approach. Your thoughts, your reflections on what you've heard.
Thank you, Dr. Mahesh. And first of all, let me congratulate all the panelists, Mr. Sikri, Dr. Mahesh Doshi, Krishna Reddy, and Mr. Vikrant for your valuable suggestions, comments, and encouragement given to us. I think let me first address the concerns issued by raised by Mr. Sikri. I see he is the author of the guideline. So Sikri know everything. I never considered him, he is a industry representative. He is a part of the entire our guideline guidance, this PLI scheme, what we have designed. And since scratch onwards, he is actively participated. He know what committee has recommended. He know what actually finally something have changes have taken place. But whatever changes taken place, the government always look into a broader angle. Okay, some we may be having, we look into some, different view as a technical person. But when government will look into any particular issue, they will, try to balance both the public as well as the industry and other so many issues. They will keep it in mind. And as Sikri said rightly, yes, we agree with him. There are some products where the quantities what we have minimum annual production capacity stated in the scheme is little higher. That sufficient incentive quantity amount is not available. So that's why yesterday we had a technical committee meeting, and we have recommended to reduce. As Sikri has also shared the one list of drugs along with the data. And today morning, actually, before start of this, I have sent that mail to the Department of Pharma to consider that request. And in addition to this, we also recommended one more very important thing. Actually, Sikri has not raised this platform. I don't because I understand that this is a live program. Maybe many media people also may be watching. So that's why I may not able to tell you some other recommendations of our committee, which are very pro industry. Actually, which is since beginning they are making that request, but that was not reflected in the final guideline. But we this time strongly we have recommended to delete that provision. I'm not able to share you that provision right now, but definitely shortly you come across what changes will come in the guideline. And the second point Secretary is made, existing facility should be used, without any investment, and even for at least 2 years. I 100% agree with him. Actually, government is also thinking about this scheme, but they have some reservation that if this scheme will come, the scheme is already approved, whether it is going to have any impact on that. So there are some concerns on that. I think there will be better clarity in that. I am sure government may consider this scheme for existing premises. And third, he made a point with respect to sale price. Yes, at the time of application, the applicant has to specify what price he will offer, what price he will sell. Based upon that, he will get incentive. As Chris said rightly, yes, there are some concerns. Definitely, the price may not be static at next 6-7 years. But the government has decided to incorporate to avoid, any misuse of this opportunity. Somebody will quote very high price, somebody will be very difficult to analyze the exact price. So that is a point for discussion. Definitely, government is open to discuss this issue. And uh, ease of doing business, current status, that's he represent which state. That's why has a lot of concern about this. But end of the day, in our guideline, we have written very clearly whatever the latest status of ease of doing business issued by the DPIIT, we will consider that. I agree, when the person representing for a particular state, you have love and affection more towards that state. That that is not a easy thing, concern. And I think Krishna Reddy garu has also raised very important thing. Just having, gestation period 1 year, 2 year, it may not able to sufficient until unless the government will give complete support in getting all necessary clearances. One is the environmental clearance. I agree with him. I think in this connection, we have strongly recommended the Department of Pharma. It is their responsibility to get a clearances. In fact, in this connection, they have already established one pharma bureau in Department of Pharmaceuticals. If I rightly, understand from the Secretary for Department of Pharmaceuticals, this responsibility, given to the Pharma Bureau, they will engage, they will tie up with the concerned ministries to get the all necessary clearance on behalf of the government. And Mr. Mahesh Doshi made a very good point. Though we will talk a lot about the single window system, but in practice, still it is on paper only. But in case of recombinant products and some other thing, we are in a position to achieve the single window system. As we said, the RCGM, GEAC, and everything is going to come under the one umbrella shortly. And he also suggested for the more guidance, and I agree with him. In fact, if you see in my presentation, one of the major challenge, I have stated we need a more guidance documents. Okay, so shortly, we will address that issue also. And he also suggested there should not be frequent changes in the regulatory mechanism. I think now you must have seen there is a very, consistency in our regulatory pattern, regulatory approval process. I am sure we achieve shortly complete predictability in the approval system. And Vikrant made a very good point. I think the issues relating to the FDI procurement, as well as the India become a regular member in the ICH, and we are in the process of moving towards global standards, achieving the PICS membership as well as the ICH member. But it will take some, because we may not able to overnight become a member. We have to strengthen our regulatory standards. We have to strengthen our regulatory mechanism. We have to update the knowledge of the experience and expertise of the regulators on par with that. Then only we should go ahead with that. Maybe in the next couple of years, I am sure we will be part of this global system. And he also suggested for waiver of phase 4 clinical trials in case of any rare diseases. Yes, in the present, wherever possible, we are waiving off the phase 4 clinical trial with the approval of subject expert committee. I think these are the comments from my side. And if anything I miss, please let us know. We will definitely look into that. Over
No,
to
thank you
Dr.
very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ishwar Reddy Garu. I think this is very, very helpful, very good dialogue. I think what is clear is that we've started something here. We need to go much farther and faster. But some of the things that I do want to just reiterate in closing, as we are slightly over time, is I think clearly innovation needs support and risk sharing by the government. This is something that is coming across clearly. The API PLI is a good step, is a good start. There is the opportunities for tweaking to bring in the brownfield components, the financing components, the implementation parts of it, the components around making sure that what we've learned from the COVID times on bringing on speed of approvals, the online ways of working, single window to be implemented for faster approvals. Is something that we need to really focus on, making sure that continues even in the post-COVID era. And then last but not least, build on our quality, our compliance strength, so that we become part of some of these international conferences such as the ICH conference and part of PICS membership, so that this component of vision and presence of India in these forums will actually make a lot more of our acceptance and our challenges being accepted in the regulated industry even more stronger. That said, I want to thank all of you really for a very nice dialogue, a very open conversation on what are the opportunities that can be brought in. Really set the stone by you, Dr. Ishwar Reddy Garu, very, very visionary presence at the helm of CDSCO. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much, Dr. Jain, Dr. Sikriji, always as doing his job on representing both industry as well as policy requirements. And Dr. Krishna Reddy Garu, Dr. Mahesh Doshi, and Mr. Vikrant Shrotriya. Thank you very much. Thanks to CII for this opportunity of bringing us together on this platform of implementing changes towards making a Atmanirbhar and a regulatory agile framework-based Indian regulatory system. Thank you very much.
Mahesh, thanks for
Yes,
maintaining the
Dr.
time management. Maintaining the time management.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mahesh. Thanks to all the panelists.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Bye.